Hello, I'm Shekhar Shah from the National Council of Applied Economic Research in New Delhi. Research quality can mean so many different things. It can mean PhD style research that's going directly, hopefully, into a refereed journal to build a career and to get tenure. Or it could mean a piece of paper that's barely 3 or 4 paragraphs that's going to the Prime Minister. And there's just such a vast sea of difference between the two. So you can't really think of research quality without a context. And the context comes from, I think, a kind of a simple relationship where research quality plus communications and engagement lead to impact. And you can work it forwards so that you can have a certain kind of research quality, say that PhD style paper, plus the communications and outreach, in which case it would be a refereed journal, and then you have a research impact, and that impact essentially is the respect you get from your peers and therefore the tenure that you get when you're up for tenure. But if you're running the relationship backwards and you need to write something for the Prime Minister, then that's going to have a very different communication strategy as well as a very different sense of the research quality that goes in. It doesn't mean it's any less powerful, it just means that it takes into account your years of experience, the judgments you are making, all those things go into research quality. So it's a very different mix then. And I think it's that openness of attitude that we need to have towards this notion of research quality that I wanted to emphasize. So one of the very interesting things that, how in any kind of event like this with 200-300 people, a few items bubble up and then they keep at the top of almost everything that people are talking about. And one such was done by Leonardo Garnier, the ex-education minister from Costa Rica the day before. I think he said, policy making doesn't happen just through knowledge. It really happens because of beliefs. And that goes back to the question I answered first, which is that, how do you affect beliefs? It takes a very complex combination of trust, persuasiveness, evidence, how you present that evidence to actually get somebody to believe in what you are saying. And so that's very important in thinking about this. So I think that's one of the really interesting things that has come out of this workshop. The second thing I think came out of a session that I led at the end of the day yesterday, where we had the gentleman from the Economic and Social Research Council in the US, Craig Bardsley, telling us about, and he didn't put it quite that way, but that's the way I then interpreted it, the virtuous circle of research, where good research quality leads to credibility. It then leads to possibly funding and collaboration, and you're being able to attract talent, which then allows you to be much more independent than you were. Independence gives you voice. Voice then adds further to your credibility, draws more talent in, draws more funding in, so it's really then a virtuous cycle. And getting into that virtuous cycle is really important for all of us think tanks, and I think that was one of the other very interesting things that I thought came out yesterday. Back to the grindstone, I think. All of us have difficult, hard to juggle 18 balls up in the air kind of jobs. It's interesting and impressive. I've been on both sides. Most of my life a donor with various foundations, and then a long stint with the World Bank. And so I can see both sides of the coin perhaps a little more clearly than many of my colleagues. And I often sometimes think about how every donor should really go through a certification course of actually running a think tanks that they are otherwise funding. And that would really open up a whole vista for them that they probably don't experience. But we try our best to convey the complexity of what we do to our donor friends. And I think it's been just a remarkable 2.5 days that we've had here.